everyone. Welcome to Talk 30, where we make conversations about money, wealth, and financial growth a little more sexy. If we spend just 30 intentional minutes talking about credit, real estate, insurance, investing, business, we can start building the knowledge and strategies that create generational wealth for our families. So, today, we are joined by Jeff Sheetzel, a husband, a father, volleyball player, right? Beach volleyball,
Beach
a
volleyball.
surfer, a professor, a rock star personal injury attorney. And like Jeff says, if you get hurt, he'll get you money. So most people don't realize that they're one accident away from financial setback. And what you don't know can cost you big. And it goes both ways because some people are trying to protect what they've built, and others don't even realize they may have a case that once they've been hurt. So tonight we're breaking down both sides, protecting your assets and protecting your rights. Are you ready to talk 30 tonight?
I, I,
Are you ready, Jeff?
I'm ready. I'm ready. I
Welcome,
need to
welcome.
bring you with me to introduce me to juries.
I would love to. All right, I'm gonna jump in. I'm gonna start talking about, we have a short period of time, so I usually just kind of get right to the questions. And again, guys, if you have any questions at all, please, ask them. So, what are the most common property related incidents that lead to lawsuits? So we'll start with home ownership, but we'll jump into other categories.
Oh man, well, property cases we call premises liability, and they fall under a lot of different categories, but the most common is obviously sidewalks. People that trip and fall on broken sidewalks. Most municipalities in New York State have a law that shifts the burden of maintaining a sidewalk from the municipality to the adjacent homeowner. So, we'll see the most common one obviously is the falling on the crack in the sidewalk if you don't maintain it properly. But you get other things like tree roots that grow under the sidewalk that will cause it to be raised up, and then you get the corollary with the snow and ice removal from the sidewalk and what your duties are in terms of that. And I think we've talked about this before, but one of the things that is really strange about the law in New York City, at least, is that you're not required as a homeowner to remove snow and ice from the sidewalk until after a storm ends. But
Mm-hmm.
if you try and you do it the wrong way, then people can sue you for it. So the moral of the story is wait 8 hours until after the storm and then clear your
And
sidewalk.
then clear it. And
Yeah,
I don't think, go ahead, Jeff.
sorry, no, go ahead. No, I said the one thing that we get people for is, and it sounds ridiculous, but it's an automatic win every time. It's the negligently piling snow. So if you pile snow uphill and then it melts and the water starts running downhill and then it refreezes, we win it every time, and it's not something that would be obvious to anybody that owns a home.
I don't think any of us realize that that's a thing. Even when you mention the sidewalks, most people don't realize that the sidewalk is their responsibility.
Right. And the other thing is, and we talked about this yesterday, take care of the area where the Amazon guy drops off your package, wherever that is, because the amount of cases that I have
Oh no.
is staggering.
Yeah, you froze for a little bit. I don't know if it was
Oh.
just on my end.
Oh, okay.
After
Well,
you
no.
said the amount of cases I have, you
Yeah,
froze.
the amount of cases I have from postal workers and Amazon workers who, who drop off a package on a set of stairs or sidewalks I had one case where they had torn out the stairs and put cinder blocks there, and the postal worker stepped on the cinder block. It tipped over. She broke her ankle. And speaking of postal workers, the other thing is restrain your dog if you're a property owner, right? Because we get a lot of cases with dog attacks, um, broken fences where they get out, a dog run that is insufficient or not strong enough for the type of dog that you own, things like that.
So guys, if you're getting package deliveries, if you got a mailman, which is everybody, take care of the area where those packages get delivered because you could be liable. All right. So, I have a question. So, oftentimes you mention the dogs. Oftentimes when people put up no trespassing signs or beware of dog signs, do those actually protect you from in any legal sense at all?
Well, they're not going to protect you from civil liability, right? They may have some kind of effect on whether the cops arrest someone if they show up at your house. But you can't put up a sign that takes away your duty as a property owner to maintain your property in a reasonably safe condition, right? Most municipalities, for example, have a law that you have to have a fence around your pool, right? You can't put up a sign saying, beware of my pool, or private property, or no trespassing, and escape liability if the neighbor's toddler comes and God forbid falls in your pool. Um, Same thing with fencing, right? We see a lot of, not necessarily in residential neighborhoods, but sometimes you do. You see people that'll put up fences that are meant to deter criminals, but they're really dangerous fencing. Like you live in a residential neighbor, you can't put barbed wire around your house because there's a reasonable expectation that people's kids are going to be kicking soccer balls over your fence, and somebody may try to climb over it. I have a case that I just settled a couple years ago with a girl who was climbing one of these fences that are really sharp spikes on the top, and she impaled her hand. She slipped, and her hand, it went right through her hand, and she actually got stuck on the fence.
Mm.
And that was against the town of Sleepy Hollow, actually, up there. Um, uh, Veterans Park, is it? It's one of the parks up there, but we um we got her, she's going to go to college for free now. So,
Wow. And that's
yeah.
what? That's an example of foreseeability.
Well, yeah, foreseeability is just an element of a negligence claim, right? I'm impressed you did your homework on the foreseeability, right? So, so in order for a defect in a, say, a sidewalk, or a dangerous condition to be actionable by someone on my side, you have to have a foreseeable risk of danger, right? Somebody would have had to look at that and say, it's foreseeable that someone could come by and get hurt by that. And that we get that in cases where people get hurt by very non-obvious means, right? We had recently a girl who got her finger cut or caught in a swinging gate and amputated at the second knuckle. And would a reasonable person look at that swinging gate and say that could take a kid's finger off? So that was, the main issue being litigated in the case.
Wow. And then you talked about the pool, and that is an example of attractive nuisance, correct?
Attractive nuisance. There you go.
Okay.
That's not the only one.
No.
You could
So
have,
what's some other examples of that, and what does that mean?
well, attractive nuisance is when somebody has something on their property that they know or should know will attract mainly children. It's another one that we get a lot is the trampoline
Mm,
without the netting around it, right? Because whether or not you want it to happen or not. If you live in a residential neighborhood, kids are going to come over and jump on your trampoline. It's municipalities sometimes will get it when they have one of these places where kids jump off of rocks really high up in the woods or whatever, and the municipality knows about it for a long time and doesn't do anything to stop them and doesn't fence it off. You'll see it in those instances too.
wow. Okay, so I know we have a lot of parents on here, and a lot of things we talk about have to do with children. Can parents be held responsible for injuries caused by their children?
Under certain circumstances, they can. The one that we talk about a lot is the social host rules. New York has a law they call the Dram Shop Act, which primarily applies to bars and nightclubs and places that serve alcohol. And if you get if a bartender overserves you and you leave the premises and then go and drive drunk and kill somebody, the bar can be held liable. It doesn't apply to homeowners unless the person drinking is a minor, right? So what does that mean? That means all these parents that want to be the cool parent out there and have the
Mm-hmm.
alcohol party at their house, they're all liable if some kid leaves the house and has an accident, or, God forbid something happens. And it's funny because I'm seeing it now. My oldest is 16, and now we're at go to party age. And it blows my mind how many parents are okay having 30 kids in their house drinking. Don't do it, people. Don't do it.
Don't do it. Not in my house. We talked about that
Well,
yesterday. Not in our house. So what rights do parents have if their child is injured at school or at someone else's house?
if you're injuring someone else's house, it's going to be the same thing as any negligence case, right?
Mhm.
It'll be the person's homeowner's insurance that pays for it. With schools, we get what we usually bring if there's an accident at school that is caused by negligence is a negligent supervision claim, right? That could be too many kids in the recess area and not enough people watching them, um, things of that nature. But the thing to remember at school is a lot of the injuries that you get at school aren't going to be actionable at all because they fall under, and here's another one of your negligence buzzwords, assumption of the risk, right?
Okay.
So let's say your kid's playing basketball in gym class. Uh, the assumption of the risk doctrine says you can't have a lawsuit for any type of injury that was resultant from the usual and customary things you would do in a basketball game, right? So if somebody, undercuts you while you're going for a layup and you break your ankle, you can't sue for that. But if you step on a place in the floor and the floor collapses, you can still sue for that because that's not something that you would, normally attribute to a basketball game or a risk that you would associate with a basketball game.
Understood. Like for instance, several years ago, my kid got hurt in gym and knocked out his front
Oh my
tooth,
God.
right? But that was during, playing football or whatever in gym. So I assume that's one of those cases.
Yeah, unless you can show that the kids were maybe doing some type of violent activity on a regular basis that they shouldn't have been
Mm,
doing and people knew about it. I mean, the big
mhm.
one, the big one that I had years ago against a school was and this is, personally, it's one of the most rewarding cases I ever had because, um, you know, back when I was a young lawyer, I was the biggest guy in the law firm, right? So they sent me to all the dangerous places to sign up clients. And I walked into the Marcy Projects one day to sign this new case of this kid who had his hip broken at school. And I walked into this house, and it was six people living in a one-bedroom apartment with
Wow.
mattresses on the floor, and a TV on the floor next to it, right? And at the end of this case, I got this kid $850,000 put away until he was 18 years old, and it's
Mhm.
it's going to be, it's life-changing money, and the parents are allowed to, there's a trustee for the account, but the parents are allowed to use some of that to provide a better place to live for the kid, going forward. And so it was really great. And what happened to that kid was, the New York City schools had transferred a security guard to his school that had a violent history at the school that he was transferred away from. And it's like the rubber room with teachers in New York City, right? Instead of firing them, they just put them somewhere else.
Mm.
And so this guy had a history of two other schools being sent away from two other schools for being aggressive with the kids. And this 8-year-old kid probably was mouthing off a little to the guy, but he threw him into a wall and hard enough to break his hip. And so yeah, so the kid, he's better now. He still keeps in touch with me, actually. But I mean, this
I
was,
love it.
I think he's 22 now, but
Oh,
he's doing well.
awesome. Does anyone have any questions before I move forward? I'm sure, Jeff has great stories, so but you might have questions about something specific. We've got business owners on here or different types of things. Um, Anybody before? Oh, I'm not even looking at the chat there. There's something in the chat. Let's see. It's not popping up. There we go. Oh, swim at your own risk sign. Yeah, no, I don't.
It's
But
it's it's going to be useless. Because if you don't have the right fence in place, it's not going to make a difference. Unfortunately,
yep, that's that. So,
it's similar to like when you go to when your kids have activities for sports, and they have you sign a waiver when you walk in. Uh, those waivers are completely meaningless. The only thing that's helpful about the waivers is that they make people think they can't sue. Um, but the thing about the waivers is that you can't sign away your right to sue for negligence, and um, you can't sue for things that are an assumed risk anyway. So they really have no function other than to make people believe that they can't bring a lawsuit, which is effective. But you
hmm.
know,
So for instance, like when say you're on vacation and you're about to go on one of those excursions and you sign the waiver that says there might be sharks or there might be this or that. Is that?
this is one of my pet peeves. This is like one of my favorite things to rant about. If you go to a foreign country, don't do the excursions. My thing with as being a personal injury lawyer. And
Mm-hmm.
I have had three different people call me over the course of my career that have suffered from a foreign country.
Oh wow.
Because that it's not like here in New York where you have all these in regulations and insurance and things like that. These guys sometimes they may have five horses and they have a family of six that signs up, so they just go and grab one from the farm down the street
Mm-hmm.
and that has no training or anything at all. And it's I mean I had unfortunately had a person call me that wanted to sue for a drowning death in a foreign country on a kayak trip because they got caught in a cave that when the tide rose and somebody died. And I said, look, there's just nothing to be done. It's
Wow.
just stay away from anything that could be remotely dangerous and in foreign countries.
Makes sense. Donna, you have a question. You can go ahead.
Yes, I just wanted to get back to the pool. So you have your pool with fencing, but if, say, a neighborhood child comes in on their own without an invite, how liable am I?
It depends on how easy that gate is to navigate, right? If it were me, I would say that if there were a lock on the gate, um, I may not take the case. But if it was something where you gave the code out to every kid in the neighborhood to the gate, I would probably take it. But it's just something where there's no winning when you have a pool because you're almost always going to get sued if something bad happens. Um, and avoiding being sued is the ideal thing, right? Because it's such a drain on your life for 3 years while you go through a lawsuit. But thankfully, homeowners insurance will cover you for the most part. But that's one of my other pieces of advice is everybody that has a home should have an umbrella policy because
Mm,
your typical homeowner's policy is capping out at 300 grand.
Yeah.
And God forbid something happens on your property and somebody gets seriously injured. Um, you could have your personal assets exposed. Uh, Typically, we don't go after the personal assets of people. I've done it once in my life, and it was because it was a doctor who was underinsured and was worth millions and millions of dollars.
Mm.
But typically, we don't go after the personal assets of the average Joe just as a matter of, I guess you call it morality on
mhm.
our end. Nobody that owns a home is trying to get someone hurt at their house, right?
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
I see another question here. Work for rent lease term tenant get, do you mean what if a rent lease term tenant gets injured on interior stairs? Agreement stipulates tenant must maintain liability insurance. Is property protected from liability claim?
Okay, so what I'm getting from that is that there's a landlord and a tenant that is supposed to maintain liability insurance uh, gets hurt on the premises, or it could be landlord leases a space to a tenant that's like a business or something. That's probably
Mhm.
what this is getting at. And the tenant is supposed to maintain the space. So you're still going to get sued if you're the owner. And if you have that agreement, what'll happen is you'll report to your insurance company that you have this agreement, and then your insurance company is going to assign a lawyer to you who will then sue the tenant's lawyer or tell the tenant what and ask for what they call a tender, which is making the tenant's insurance company defend you instead of your own insurance company.
Got it. Does that answer your question? Yes. Okay. Anybody else have a question? I'm gonna get to yours, Mavi. Okay. So, when should someone consider seeking legal guidance after an accident?
Well, as soon as humanly possible is the right answer, because there are a lot of things that need to happen right away, not just in order to have a case, but to increase the success rate of your case, right? Because if you're not seeking medical attention right away, and you wait till a week after the accident to go see a doctor, defense lawyers are going to look at that and say, "Hey, it must not have been that serious if you didn't
Right.
go to the doctor right away." But more importantly, if you have a case against a municipality like City of New York, City of Yonkers, your local town, a lot of people don't know this because the regular statute of limitations for a personal injury case is 3 years. But most municipalities in New York State have a separate rule that applies to them where you have to file something they call a notice of claim within 90 days after the accident takes place. So if you don't do that, you forfeit your right to sue forever. And it's a
Wow.
big, it's an unfair advantage that these municipalities get. The other thing I would tell you is that if you have a car accident, the no fault rules say that you have to file for no fault benefits within 30 days. And usually it's the lawyer that's telling you how to do that. But in today's day and age, where there are cameras everywhere, it's really important to see a lawyer right away, because the second you come into our office, we're sending letters to everybody in the area saying retain your video. We're sending investigators out to get the Ring doorbell cameras from everyone. I have a police shooting case right now that's probably going to be worth about $25 million. And it's going to be all over newspapers in like 3 years when we get the verdict. But cops shot a guy that they said had a gun but didn't have a gun and paralyzed him, young kid, and then completely lied about everything that happened afterwards. The
Wow.
camera, there was one of those Argus cameras, with the bulb, the NYPD cameras above. That tape mysteriously disappeared. They had every day of the week except the day of
Except
our
that one.
shooting, and so we were lucky enough to go and get the footage from the Dwayne Reed across the street before they were able to do anything with it. But the really shocking thing to me was we got 3,000 pages of documents, of investigative documents from the police, because anytime there's a shooting, there's like a
Hmm.
whole process, and they mapped out the cameras in a one block area of New York City, and there were 37 cameras on one block, between private businesses, police, police cameras, and just it's like everybody has a Ring doorbell now, and so this stuff is everywhere, but most of it deletes after 30 days. So if you don't have
Hmm.
somebody that's on it right away, um, you're in trouble.
Wow. That's crazy. Does anyone have any other questions? We're getting towards the end of our 30 minutes. It goes really quickly, and Jeff has great, interesting stories. You know what? I wanted to talk about just because you had mentioned this one, and I think it's something that we probably do often. Like you had a case where it was a worker, and the homeowner required them to wear those shoe covers.
Oh, that was a really interesting case. That was the defendant in that case lived in one of these $30 million apartments on Central Park, on Park Ave or like overlooking Central Park, and the workers came in and she had such fancy floors that she forced them to wear these like booties that had no traction on the bottom. And then the guy was on a 12-foot ladder because, of course, this place had 20-foot ceilings
Mm-hmm.
on the 45th floor in Manhattan. And he slipped because he's wearing the booties with no traction. He slipped off the ladder and fell and had a really bad broken arm.
Right. So it's like if you, the homeowner, required them to do something and that requirement caused them to injure themselves, then you're liable.
Right. Normally the laws that apply to construction work in New York City don't apply to owners of one and two family homes.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but the exception to that is if you actively take part or control the work. So, an example of that would be we had a case where we were able to hold the homeowner liable because he was actually a contractor himself and he was going to Home Depot and buying all of the materials for the
Mm-hmm.
project because he wanted to use his contractor discount, and that actually put him on the hook or his homeowner's insurance on the hook for liability.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Does anyone, because we're very close and I have my last question, but does anyone else have any questions before I go to my last question?
I just have one question
Hi,
on that.
Kristen.
Hi. On the story you just told us where they made there's construction workers wear the booties. How did they prove that? Was it like witnesses or
It may not be so surprising that when you bring $1 million lawsuit against someone who is worth $300 million, they didn't really care to lie about it.
Oh,
You know,
okay.
this guy's wife flew in from London, and where they have another beautiful house, and it was just very matter of fact about it. Yeah, I didn't want them messing up my floors, and
Okay.
like, and I was very upset that they got dust on my art pieces that were in the
Wow.
gallery, and but it was they were very honest about it, actually.
That's funny.
All
Yeah.
right, this is my last question. Like I told you, this is the one I ask everybody, right? So, if everything we've talked about today, protecting yourself, all the personal injury stuff, knowing your rights, preventing liability, were a love language, right, Jeff? Which one would it be and why?
So I admittedly I had to look this stuff up. My wife mentions it every now and then. I would say quality time is that one. It's
That's
something
one.
about time, right? So
Mm-hmm.
I'd say because for me as an attorney, um, the complaint you get most about attorneys is they never return your phone calls, right?
Mm-hmm.
So one of the things I really try to do is I try to always be available for my clients. Most of my clients have my cell phone number because the way I look at it is I'd rather be bothered at midnight than lose a client. So if somebody most of the people I represent have suffered really devastating life-changing injuries, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they're at the lowest point in their life. And what I like to say is, when you're at your worst, I'm at my best, right?
Oh, I love
That's sort of.
that.
So I guess the quality time would be the one.
I love that, Jeff. Good answer.
Oh, thanks.
Does Amanda mind the like midnight calls and things like that?
Not really, because that's what brings the money in, right? So
Okay.
it's the best one in terms of my job and my relationship is it's I once got a case from my Madden football league online. So it was that's my excuse for now when I play video games at home. It's you never know when somebody from California who's in your Madden league's kid is going to get hit by a postal truck,
Oh
and
gosh.
that's what happened. And because of I sent a case from my Madden league, I got a check 3 years later for $80,000, and now that's the
See?
justification, for that type of type of thing.
Yep, you never know where the business is going to come from. Well, thank you, Jeff.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. So
Very
much
exciting.
information. And I know everybody, you guys can get off mute and say thank you, Jeff, because this was awesome.
Yes,
Thank
Um,
thank you,
you.
Jeff.
Thanks,
You have
Jeff.
a,
Thanks, Cindy.
yeah,
yes,
Thank
don't go
Thanks,
yet
you.
though.
Jeff. Yeah, this
Don't
was
very
awesome.
informative,
don't
very
go yet
informative.
though. So Jeff's if you his website and everything is in the chat, but also afterwards when I send you the recording and all the stuff, all his contact information will be in there as well. If you have any information, I mean any questions, please feel free to call him. So thanks again, Jeff. Thank you everyone for joining Talk 30. Our next Talk 30 is going to be May 13th. I'm Cindy Lee Dorsley, your homegirl for life. And remember, I'm bringing you the tools and conversations to help you make wealth building sexy and achievable for generations to come. Because wealth building is a relationship. And like any good relationship, it deserves quality time, right, Jeff?
Right.
Attention and intentional conversations. And here at Talk 30, we believe those conversations are sexy and should happen very often. So have a good night, and I'll see